To the Supreme God, to the Great Divine Father and the Great Divine Mother, thank you for your priceless blessings, for your divine light, divine love, divine power, divine healing, guidance, mercy, help, and protection. We thank you. To our great spiritual teacher, to all the great spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great ones, we very humbly thank you for your great blessings. Thank you so much. Thank you. Special thanks to um, Swami Rama and to his great teacher, the great Bengali Baba, for showing us the truth, for showing us from their experiences what lies ahead. So we get inspired and we become self-propelled to follow the path of self-realization. We thank you in full faith, we thank you. Alrighty, चलिए हम जो थे यहाँ पे थे टू नेकेड renunciates पे थे दो नंगे योगी पे थे टू नेकेड renunciates. Let's start. On my way to Gangotri, I stayed for a month at Uttarkashi, which is deep in the Himalayas. I used to go for my morning walk 2 or 3 miles towards Tekhala. Between Tekhala and my residence, two completely naked sadhus lived in the 2 or 3 miles, lived in the two separate rooms of a small wooden house on a bank of the Ganges. They were illiterate widowers in their mid-60s and did not have any belongings, not even a pot of water. I knew these two, and they were famous, but not because of their learning and yogic wisdom. They became famous because of their outer appearance of living naked in such a cold climate. In reality, they were full of ego, anger, and jealousy. They despised each other. Wow. One sunny day, as I was walking towards Tekala, I saw from a distance that they had both spread their straw in the sun to warm it. They did this once in a while to remove the moisture from it. When I approached their house, I found that they were wrestling, two naked old sadhus wrestling fiercely. I intervened and said, "What is this?" They stood apart, and one of them said, "He stepped on my straw." What he must think of himself. He thinks that he is the greatest renunciate in the world. This experience was a setback in my life. I started analyzing the path of renunciation. I realized that even after renouncing wealth, home, relatives, wife, and children, one cannot easily renounce the lust for name and fame, nor can one easily purify the ego and direct his emotions towards self-realization. Cultivation of a new mind is a necessary step for enlightenment. See, cultivation of a new mind. Pranic healing में या आराहट योगा के बाद we have a specific technique जिसको बोलते हैं inner reflection, erasing and firm resolution. Inner reflection का पार्ट जो होता है वो अपने पास को क्लीन करने के काम में आता है. However, जो टेक्निक होती है फर्म रेसोल्यूशन की, वो नया माइंड या नया पैटर्न या नई नई लाइफ आगे से कैसी होनी चाहिए उसको क्रिएट करने के काम में आती है. तो आपको अपना यू हैव टू किल योर ओल्ड सेल्फ टू रिक्रिएट द न्यू सेल्फ, विच मीन्स आपके अंदर का जो राम है उसको अपने अंदर के रावण को मारना पड़ता है एंड सीता को बार बार छुड़ाना पड़ता है. समथिंग लाइक दैट. इट्स अ प्रोसेस, राइट? Renunciation, so it says कि mere renunciation brings unhappiness and frustration. Renunciation without being aware of the purpose of life creates problems for the renunciates. and for the people of the world who look for examples from them. The people of the world think that renunciates are the best examples to be followed, but I have met many householders who are far superior to renunciates. The inner condition is more important than the external way of living. एक ना रिसेंट की बात है कि मेरे मेरी सोसाइटी में एक व्यक्ति रहते हैं, वेरी रिच पर्सन ऑब्वियसली, वेरी वेरी रिच, एंड उनका जो व्यू पॉइंट है लाइफ को या लाइफ की सिचुएशंस को लेके वो इतना मॉडरेट है। मॉडरेट का मतलब इतना ह्यूमिलिटी से भरा हुआ है कि एक्चुअली गेट इंस्पायर्ड जब भी आप उनसे बात करते हैं। कुछ सुबह कुछ मेडिटेशन करते होंगे, मुझे आइडिया नहीं है, कुछ तो करते होंगे, बट मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंटली उनका इतना इतना मॉडरेट व्यू पॉइंट है कि कभी कभी ना समझना मुश्किल आता है कि ये लाइफ की प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कैसे करते हैं। हम लोग प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर रहे हैं तो हम लोग एक साइड ले लेते हैं, वो वो कोई साइड नहीं लेते, वो मॉडरेटेड रहते हैं हर सिचुएशन में एक्चुअली, विच इज एक्चुअली वेरी 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 इंस्पायरिंग। मतलब बहुत ही पावरफुल था वो। उनसे दो चार बार मतलब मैं मिला हूँ, बहुत अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस था। इन द वर्ल्ड एंड येट अबव, on the face of it, it may seem that some swamis in India are given whatever they need without doing any labor, but this is not so. Actually, there is a public persecution of swamis going on all the time in India. People think that a swami is not a human being. Everyone expects him to live a superhuman life and disturbs him. People come and say, you have to speak at such and such pace, you have to see me, you have to heal this person, and so on. If a Swami does not live according to their expectations, they will say, what kind of a fake Swami is he? It is a common assumption in India that Swamis don't need food or sleep because they are supposed to have transcended these needs. Because he is a renunciate, a Swami should not feel hunger, should not have money, and if it is cold, he should not have a blanket. People have this notion, and we have to live according to it at the cost of sleep, food, and everything. Being a Swami is not an easy job. There is indeed constant persecution, even if well intended. In India, wherever Swamis the people out of sheer enthusiasm come with drums and chants continually. Some days I would walk as many as 20 miles on foot, and in the evening I would become very tired. It was the only chance I had to rest, and I would have to get up early for meditation. But the people would come and chant for several hours. And if I asked them to go, they will say, no, sir, we want to chant for you. I needed sleep and they wanted to chant. So I learned to sleep while they chanted, with the drums and everything going on around me. When they closed their eyes in chanting, I closed my eyes in sleep. You have heard of what is usually called sleepwalking, but there is another thing of sleepwalking for which you have not heard. I learned to sleep with regard to the things which were distracting me, and to walk on my path. No matter what happened, I went on. See, distractions like this. Amazing, yeah. Decide that no matter what happens, you will do what you set out to do. If you are determined, possible distractions will still be there, but you will continue on your path and remain undisturbed. Sankalp, determination is very important. You cannot change your circumstances, the world, or society to suit you. But if you have strength and determination, you can go through this procession of life very successfully. ये इसका एक और इंग्लिश वर्ड संकल्प डिटर्मिनेशन तो है ही है। मॉडर्न डे लाइफ में इसको बोलते हैं इंडस्ट्रियसनेस। मतलब आप कितने अपने गोल को लेके गोल ओरिएंटेड हैं और कितनी मेहनत करते हैं, कितने जूझ जाते हैं और यहाँ वहाँ की बातों को अपने मन में नहीं आने देते। इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट, कंप्लीटली लाइक फोकस, रेजर फोकस। या मेरे स्पिरिचुअल टीचर हैं मास्टर शोआ, वो एक बार बताते हैं कि ना, यू शुड बी लाइक अ हीट सीकिंग मिसाइल। जब तक टारगेट पे ना पहुंच जाए तब तक पीछा करती रहे उसका। हीट सीकिंग मिसाइल। नेक्स्ट, टू लूज इज टू गेन। There was once a Swami who used to go and stay with his disciple. The disciples' whole family loved and revered the Swami because he was an example of discipline and a very spiritual man. He always got up before sunrise, bathed, and sat for hours in meditation. But one day early in the morning, while it was still dark, he shouted, "Hey, get me food." His disciples said, "So this is your bath time." The Swami replied, "Just get me food, I'm hungry." He ate and then he took a bath. After his bath, he went to empty his bowels and then he went to sleep. He made everything topsy-turvy and the whole house was upset. They said, "Something has happened to him. He's gone crazy." The wife said, "Our master is a wonderful man. We should help him." So they called for doctors and told them, "Don't disturb him by saying anything about medicine. Say, we want to learn from you. Be courteous, please." The doctors came and behaved like disciples because they were paid for that purpose. They said, "Gurudev, how are you?" But he wouldn't respond. They thought he was in a coma because he was not moving. One looked at his eyes and there was no movement. Another found that there was a little pulse. One said to another, "I don't think he is going to live." A third doctor took out a stethoscope and found the heartbeat decreasing. So he reported he has a failing heart. The woman of the house started weeping because he had always looked on him as her spiritual father. Finally, I was asked to come. When I entered, he sat up and I asked Swamiji, "What is the matter?" He said, "Nothing is the matter. Why do you ask?" I told him, "Everybody's worried." He said, "I used to meditate for two things, but today my parents died and I am in sorrow, so I'm not meditating." His language was entirely mystical. I said, "Your parents died? You are a Swami. You have nothing to do with parents." One second. Finally, Swami Rama was asked to come. When I entered, he sat up and I asked Swamiji, "What is the matter?" He said, "Nothing is the matter. Why do you ask?" I told him, "Everybody is worried in the house." He said, I used to meditate for two things, but today my parents died and I am in sorrow, so I am not meditating." His language was entirely mystical. I said, "Your parents died? You're a Swami. You have nothing to do with parents." "No, no," he said. "You also have parents. When they die, you will understand." He continued, "Attachment was my mother and anger was my father. They both died. So I have nothing to do. Now I do not need to do anything. Meditation will become your very nature when you give up attachment, anger, and pride. Then you will not have to pose for meditation. You, for your whole life, will be a sort of meditation." Wow. Attachment and anger, mother and father. That's amazing. Good story, no? you know जब वो डॉक्टर्स आए थे और वो दे वर एग्जामिनिंग हिम द पल्स एंड ये वो राइट। सो मेरे दिमाग में आ रहा था कि अगर कोई पापा लेटे हुए हैं और छोटे 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 बच्चे आके अपना वो डॉक्टर वाला किट यहाँ वहाँ चला रहे हैं एंड वो बोल रहे, "पापा आपको ये, पापा आपको ये" टाइप्स, वो वाली फीलिंग आ रही थी। एनीवे, लेट्स गो फॉरवर्ड। Number 7, experiences on various paths. This section of book is primarily from Swamiji's diaries. Knowledge of the various paths lead you to form your own conviction. The more you know, the more you decide to learn. When you have sharpened the faculty of discrimination, you firmly tread your path without any doubts. A renowned lady sage, we two young aspirants, Nantin Baba and I, lived in the Laria Kanta forests of Nainital when I was 16 years of age. At that time, Anandamayi Ma, a well-known spiritual leader of India, was going on a pilgrimage with her husband. Although they traveled together, they did not have the usual husband-wife relationship, but had mutually developed an understanding of the values of abstinence and had decided to live as celibates. They were both in their 40s and were totally dedicated to the Lord. On this pilgrimage, they were accompanied by a large group of followers and were traveling from Mansarovar to Kailash, which is near Mount Everest, the highest of the Himalayan mountains. A pilgrimage to this site is considered to be the greatest of all, and on the way, the people aspire to have a glance of the sages and to meet the adepts. Anandamayi Ma heard about us two young renunciates and came to visit us. Wow, really? Came to visit us on her way to Kailash. When she returned from Kailash 2 months later, she again passed through Nainital, and at that time we met her again and attended her group meetings in the evenings. She was a follower of this path of love and devotion and regularly offered discourses on the path to her large following. There are many paths to enlightenment generally referred to in yoga, but actually there are six main paths. And bhakti, yoga, the path of devotion, is one of them. This path of love is a path of self surrender, and music is one of the devotional expressions. Bhakti yoga is based on self sacrifice, reverence, and compassion. In this path, humility, gentleness, purity, simplicity, and sincerity are important virtues. It is the path of the heart. This means that the followers direct the power of emotion towards God. Many on this path start flowing tears when they hear talk of God or when they assemble for chanting. Philosophically, the aspirant on this path does not want to merge his individuality in God, but prefers to have a separate identity and to be always in the service of the Lord. The philosophy of liberation, according to this path, is nearness to God. Amazing. Liberation means attaining status in the celestial plane where one can constantly remain near to God. Many follow this path, but it is not as easy to follow as most people think. Bhakti Yoga is not the path of blind followers. She is not the path of blind followers. This is a very important line. Bhakti Yoga is not the path of blind followers, actually. The problem with our understanding is we think that bhakti uses no intellect. That is not true. This is not true at all. So आनंदमयी माँ जो है ये बहुत ही फेमस सेंट है इंडिया की. मैं आपको उनके बारे में कुछ बताता हूँ. तो आनंदमयी माँ जो है वो आई थिंक उनका मेंशन ऑटोबायोग्राफी ऑफ योगी वाली बुक में भी किया हुआ है कि कैसे वो सेल्फ टॉट थे. एक टाइम ऐसा आया था उनकी लाइफ में कि शी वुड जस्ट स्टार्ट मेकिंग डिवाइन पोजेस टू एक्सप्रेस डिविनिटी. उनके लिए लाइफ में जो है से गॉड और उनमें कोई फर्क नहीं था. उनकी बॉडी घंटों घंटों के लिए डिवाइन मेडिटेटिव पोज में अपने आप चली जाती थी. एंड शी वुड एंड अप खत्म होने के बाद शी वुड एंड अप एज यू नो क्या बोलना चाहिए, shall we say deeply self-realized after few years या after many years. बट इनके लिए ये बोला जाता है कि इनका कोई बाहर का गुरु नहीं था, शी वाज सेल्फ टॉट, उनके वो खुद की ही गुरु थी, उन्होंने खुद को ही इनिशिएट मतलब इनिशिएशन किया था, इनिशिएट किया था, समथिंग लाइक दैट. एंड पढ़ी लिखी भी कुछ खास नहीं थी शायद, जहां तक मुझे याद है, इलिटरेट थी, मतलब रामकृष्ण परमहंसा की तरह कोई तरह पढ़ी लिखी नहीं थी. इनकी भी फॉलोइंग बहुत बहुत अच्छी थी, मतलब बहुत पावरफुल फॉलोइंग थी एक्चुअली इनकी. um, इनकी शादी का जो एक्सपीरियंस है वो बहुत अच्छा है. इनकी शादी हो गई थी, इनकी पेरेंट्स इनकी शादी करवाई थी. सुहागरात वाले दिन जब वो अपने बेड पे मतलब ऐसे बैठी हुई थी, एंड फिर उनके पति देव आए, मतलब बहुत सुंदर थी ये तो, मतलब कोई बात ही नहीं बोलने वाली है ना. तो जैसी मतलब अश्लील आंखों से उनको छुआ, he got a huge blow of current, electricity, and at the shock, मतलब basically electric shock. एंड वो सब उनको समझ में नहीं आया, प्लस पर उस टाइम पे वो इतना समझ गए कि लेडी कोई नॉर्मल लेडी नहीं है, ये एक नॉर्मल लेडी कहीं से भी नहीं है, शी इज अ डिवाइन लेडी, उतना समझ गए वो. और उसके बाद ही सेट, उसी टाइम पे उन्होंने ये कहा कि मैं जो है प्रण लेता हूँ आगे से, इसके बाद से मैं अपने आप को हमेशा I'll go to मौन व्रत टू रिपेंट, कि मेरे दिमाग में आपके लिए लस्टफुल थॉट्स थे, ये मैं प्रण लेता हूँ कि मैं ऐसा करूंगा. एंड उसके बाद से ही बिकेम अ म्यूट, मतलब क्या बोलते हैं, मौन व्रत को क्या बोलते हैं, लाइफ लॉन्ग मौन व्रत, दैट ही टुक. सो दैट इज वन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. एंड बाय द वे ये इनके फर्स्ट डिसाइपल भी बने, इनके हस्बैंड जो है, इनका पूरा का पूरा काम ये संभालते थे, बट विदाउट स्पीकिंग और टॉकिंग. मौन व्रत ले लिया था इन लोगों ने, इन्होंने लाइफ लॉन्ग का. दैट इज एक्चुअली इम्प्रेसिव, नो. एक एक्सपीरियंस आपको ऐसे चेंज कर दे कि यू टेक एक्सट्रीम मेजर्स, दैट्स अमेजिंग, इट्स इम्प्रेसिव. आगे चलते हैं. ज्ञान योगा इज सेकंड पाथ, कर्म योगा इज थर्ड पाथ, कुंडलिनी योगा इज फोर्थ पाथ, राज योगा इज फिफ्थ पाथ, श्री विद्या इज द सिक्स्थ पाथ. ठीक है. ज्ञान योगा इज अ पाथ ऑफ नॉलेज, एंड दैट इज कॉल्ड द योगा ऑफ इंटेलेक्ट. This study involves not merely the cognitive intellect, but rather that intellect which has been sharpened by listening attentively to the sayings of the great sages as they are taught by a competent teacher, and then contemplating on these sayings to finally attain a state of freedom. This path is like the razor's edge, and if one does not tread it with discipline, he might become egotistical. Constant company of the sages and contemplation with the help of non-attachment are important requisites on this path. मतलब आपको ये पाथ है ज्ञान योग का, जहाँ आपकी डेप्थ ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग आपको एनलाइटनमेंट तक लेके जाती है. भक्ति योगा वाला जो पाथ है, उसमें आप इमोशंस का इस्तेमाल करके मतलब क्या बोला था कि यू डायरेक्ट द पावर ऑफ इमोशन टुवर्ड गॉड. आप इमोशन का इस्तेमाल करके लिबरेशन पा लेते हो, या इमोशन का बेसिक इस्तेमाल करके. नेक्स्ट, कर्म योगा. कर्म yoga is the path followed by those who believe in doing duties selflessly. These aspirants understand that all the fruits of one's action should be surrendered to God, who dwells in everyone's heart. Selfless action, performed skillfully, liberates one from the bondage created by the fruits therein. ये कितनी अच्छी बात लिखी है. Selfless action, performed skillfully, liberates a person from the bondage created by the fruits therein. इसका मतलब पता क्या है, इसका मतलब है कि अगर आपको कर्मा से छुट्टी चाहिए अपने कार्य करने, देखिए कि आप कोई भी काम अगर करेंगे उसमें कर्मा अटैच होगा. उस आपने कोई भी काम किया, लास्ट में उसके कर्मा होता है, अच्छा या बुरा हो उससे फर्क नहीं पड़ता. अगर आपको चाहिए कि आप ये कर्मा आए ही नहीं, खत्म हो जाए करना पूरी तरह से। आप अच्छा काम करो, चाहे कोई भी काम करो, सेल्फलेसली करो और स्किलफुली करो। इसलिए बोलते हैं कि कर्म पर ध्यान दो और फल की चिंता मत करो, ये गीता में लिखा है, राइट। बढ़िया ढंग से काम करो, स्किलफुली काम करो, और अपने आप को इक्वेशन से बाहर निकाल दो। दैट्स व्हेन यू विल हैव नो फ्रूट्स कमिंग एट द एंड। नो कर्मा, नो फ्रूट्स, नथिंग, जस्ट फिनिश, सोल विल एडवांस। इसको बोलते हैं सैक्रिफाइस एक्चुअली, एक तरीके से। Knowledge of karma yoga is essential to attaining liberation. By performing right actions which do not create bondage, and by attaining higher knowledge, one liberates oneself from the rounds of births and deaths. Kundalini yoga is one of the aspects of yoga which is practiced by those who understand a great deal about the body and the nervous system and the various channels of energy in the human body. These special disciplines that help the aspirant to control his bodily function and internal states are essential. The primal force which remains in the sleeping state at the base of the spinal column is consciously awakened and led through the Sushumna to the highest of the chakras, where the Shakti principle unites with the Shiva principle. So Sushumna is the most subtle channel on which the primal force travels. Without its application, that Kundalini cannot rise. तो बेसिकली वो ये बता रहे हैं कि सुषुम्ना जो है बिल्कुल हमारी एनर्जी बॉडी का एक मेजर, एक सुपर हाईवे है, मतलब सबसे बड़ा वाला हाईवे है, ठीक है। ऑन विच द प्राइमल फोर्स ट्रेवल्स, मतलब कुंडलिनी जो है वो सुषुम्ना के अंदर ट्रैवल करती है, राइट। अगर उससे इस्तेमाल, मतलब जो भी आप टेक्निक लगाएंगे, अगर आप उसका प्रॉपर इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगे तो कुंडलिनी राइज नहीं होने वाली है। चक्रास आर द व्हील्स ऑफ लाइफ यूज फॉर द सटल बॉडी। शक्ति इज द डिवाइन मदर हु मैनिफेस्ट्स द यूनिवर्स। शक्ति को बोला जाता है कुंडलिनी शक्ति, इन शॉर्ट, राइट। द मदर एस्पेक्ट, द मैटर एस्पेक्ट, who manifests the universe. She is a universal power which can function only through that mother force, right? So ये बहुत अच्छा आई थिंक अंडरस्टैंडिंग था हमारे लिए कि कुंडलिनी योगा, जिसको कि मतलब पंडित गोपी कृष्णा, बाबा जी का क्रिया योगा, कराटिक योगा में भी इस तरह के मतलब वो प्रैक्टिस है। ये आइडियली कुंडलिनी को जगाने वाला काम करती है, जिससे कि you're able to attain oneness with God and with the higher great beings actually. One of the amazing parts about Kundalini is the mysticism, जो हर चक्र के हर लेवल ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस पे आपको एक्सपीरियंस करने को मिलता है। ये आई डोंट नो कि बाकी सब में भी होगा या नहीं, मुझे इतना नहीं पता है, बट कुंडलिनी केस में ये ट्रू है एक्चुअली। नेक्स्ट पाथ इज राज योगा। Raj Yoga is a path of systematic discipline which leads the student upward along the 8-runged ladder to a state called Samadhi. 8-runged ladder मतलब Ashtanga Yoga, or union with the absolute reality. This is the most comprehensive path and is a highly systematic and evolved science in which karma, bhakti, kundalini, and gnana yoga are combined. The philosophy of Raj Yoga is based on Sankhya philosophy. अगर आपको राजयोग के बारे में और पढ़ना है तो स्वामी विवेकानंद की बहुत अच्छी बुक है राजयोग, आप उसको एक बार प्लीज पढ़ लीजिएगा। श्री विद्या ये एक 6th टेक्निक है इन विच द माइक्रोकॉस्म एंड द मैक्रोकॉस्म आर थॉरोली अंडरस्टूड, इज द हाईएस्ट ऑफ ऑल द पाथ्स एंड इज प्रैक्टिस्ड बाय ओनली वेरी फ्यू accomplished ones. It's a practical path but requires strong philosophical understanding before it is broadened. Practice based on mere information of books could be time consuming as well as dangerous. A competent teacher is necessary in this spiritual practice, and the principles of Tantra and other philosophies need to be thoroughly understood before a student takes such a venture. This extremely rare path is followed only by the highly accomplished sages. Sri Vidya wala jo path hai, ये आनंदमयी माँ है अल्मोड़ा में, I mean, she's actually a gorgeous woman. She's a very, very beautiful lady and extremely saint-like. श्री विद्या ओके बैंगलोर में एक मेरी फ्रेंड है उसने एक कोर्स किया था श्री विद्या साधना के ऊपर आई एम नॉट श्योर कि वो क्या कोर्स था एग्जैक्टली बट शायद कोई ना कोई लोकल में यहाँ पे कोई ना कोई सिखाता होगा तो क्वाइट पॉसिबल Nantin Baba and I attended a gathering of Anandamai Ma's students in which everyone was chanting in Bengali and Hindi. We enjoyed listening to the chants but felt more like observers than part of the group. We were both inclined toward meditation and were on the paths of Raj Yoga and Gnana Yoga, although we also appreciated the other paths. If a person follows one particular path, it does not mean that he hates the other paths. Nonetheless, one of the Anandamayi Ma students came up to us and tried to convince us that the path of devotion was the highest one and that we should switch to it. He asked, "Why are you not participating in the chanting?" I told him, "The horse that pulls the buggy does not enjoy pulling it, but the person who is seated in the buggy enjoys the ride and benefits by witnessing and sitting quietly. The person who is performing the action does not enjoy it as much as the wise man who is witnessing it. Some people chant and others enjoy the chanting silently. We are enjoying more than anybody else. How do you know that we do not follow the path of devotion?" In his ignorance, the student was very adamant that this path was the only one. Our discussion soon led to an argument, and Anandamai Ma intervened by saying to her follower, "Don't argue with these two young renunciates. One should try to understand one's own inner worth and then follow the path best suited to him. The path of devotion does not mean dumb devotion. Devotion means total dedication, surrender, and love for the Lord. It is the path of the heart, but it does not contradict that intellect or reason which solves many problems of life. Devotion is also part of the other paths. It is not possible for Gnana Yogi to attain enlightenment if he does not also have devotion. Everyone wants to follow bhakti, the path of devotion, thinking that it is very simple and easy, but that is not true. The path of devotion means accepting existence of Lord instead of worshipping one's own existence. Wow. Wow. The path of devotion means accepting the existence of the Lord instead of worshipping one's own existence. Those who weep, shiver, become emotional, or act in a funny way cannot be called the followers of Bhakti Yoga. Tranquility of mind should be cultivated, then all the paths can be understood, and not before that. Purification of the mind is necessary and is achieved by disciplining one's mind, action, and speech. Argumentation is a state of learning and not a state of being. Argumentation is a state of learning, not a state of being. That's a beautiful line, such a powerful line. Wow. I remember her remarkable discourse even today. I asked her, "Is it true that your path is superior to other paths and that only what you are doing is authentic? Do you think that others are wasting their time?" She replied, "My path of devotion suits me, but do not change your paths. Those who do not have guidance become confused and often change their paths. A confused mind is not fit to follow any path. Seekers of truth should learn to search for competence and guidance by seeing certain signs and symptoms in the teacher, such as selflessness, truthfulness, sincerity, and control of mind, action, and speech. Students also commit mistakes when they become idealistic without observing their capacity or following any discipline. They see only what they want to see. This prevents them from learning, and then they get attached to the path which they think they are following. They become very fanatical and egotistical even when and even begin fighting with people. This can happen to any seeker if his inferiority complex goes on developing and creating boundaries. मतलब लो सेल्फ एस्टीम, इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा बात करेंगे अभी, ठीक है? Closing all the doors of knowledge and making him self-centered, uncommunicative, and egotistical. We'll talk about this in a short while, yeah? Ma confirmed our ideas and strengthened those principles which we were following. She said, learning the scriptures is very good and helpful, but without satsang, such learning can also make anyone egotistical. A learned man having satsang is very humble, communicative, and gentle in his behavior. Beginners often argue and boast about the superiority of their way. But one who has trodden the path knows that all paths lead to the exact same destination. There is no superior or inferior path. It is immaterial which path one follows, but one should carefully watch one's own modifications of mind and learn not to identify with them. As she stared at the eyes of her husband, which were like the cups of wine full of devotion, we said goodbye to Anandmai Ma and I went to the quiet place where I often used to hide myself. ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ है जिन्होंने यहाँ बताया कि students also commit mistakes when they become idealistic without observing their capacity or following any discipline. They see only what they want to see. This prevents them from learning. They see only what they want to see. अगर आप कभी ध्यान दोगे तो अगर कभी कोई आर्गुमेंट किसी के साथ आपका होता है, उसमें अगर आपको ट्रबल ये हो रही है कि सामने वाला आपका पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू नहीं समझ रहे और आप भी सामने वाले का पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू नहीं समझ रहे हो, तो आपको लगेगा कि वो सामने वाला मेरी बात नहीं सुनना चाह रहा है क्योंकि वो अपनी ही बात में कंप्लीटली फोकस्ड है, उसको कोई और व्यू पॉइंट नहीं दिख रहा एक्चुअली. सो ये ऑलमोस्ट सबके साथ होता है जो कि इमेच्योर होते हैं इन जनरल, राइट? सो ये इंपॉर्टेंट बात उसमें ये लिखी थी. और दूसरी बात उसमें ये लिखी थी कि जो है कि दिस प्रिवेंट्स देम फ्रॉम लर्निंग एंड दे गेट अटैच्ड टू द पाथ which they think they are following. They become very fanatical and egotistical and even begin fighting with people. ठीक है, तो इसमें क्या मतलब होता है कि जितने भी क्रूसेड्स हुए हैं क्रिश्चियनिटी के वर्ल्ड के ऊपर, मास मर्डर्स जो कुछ भी हुए हैं, कि गॉड वांट्स अस यू टू बिकम अ क्रिश्चियन, चलो लेट्स मेक एवरीवन अ क्रिश्चियन फॉर एग्जांपल. मास कन्वर्जन्स जो चीजें भी हुई हैं इस तरह की, खाना वाना दे के मतलब वो दारू वारू पिला के सबको मास में कन्वर्ट कर दो. मैं क्रिश्चियंस की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, इन जनरल मैं इन जनरल रिलीजियस प्रॉब्लम्स की बात कर रहा हूँ कि जहाँ जब भी हिंदुइज्म में भी प्रॉब्लम सब जगह पे चल रही है, ऐसी कोई वो नहीं है. हर एक का अपना अपना पास्ट होता है. हम रिलीजन या वो टीचर्स को कुछ नहीं बोल रहे हैं, हम उन फैनेटिक्स की बात कर रहे हैं जो कि हर रिलीजन में पाए जाते हैं, इस्लाम में भी सब जगह पे पाए जाते हैं वो एक्चुअली. अब बात यह है कि फैनेटिसिज्म सिखिज्म में भी है, कुछ खालिस्तानी वाले हैं ना. तो बात यह कि फैनेटिसिज्म तब रहता है जबकि आपको किसी भी साइड की समझ ना हो, आपको सिर्फ एक पॉइंट दिखे, वो भी अपने लोअर इमोशंस को प्लीज करने के लिए, और आप दूसरे से अपनी बात इसलिए मत मानना चाहते क्योंकि आपकी सेल्फ एस्टीम बिल्कुल पुअर है, लो सेल्फ, आपकी अपनी खुद की कोई वर्थ नहीं है अपनी आंखों में, अपनी चॉइसेस की भी कोई वर्थ नहीं है, और आपकी वर्थ केवल सामने वाला आपकी बात माने उससे होती है. तो यू गो एनी वे एनी लेंथ टू सामने वाला मेरी बात मान जाए. दैट इज द प्रॉब्लम विद दिस अप्रोच, वेरी डेंजरस मायने में. तो लो सेल्फ एस्टीम के लोग क्या क्या नहीं करते, मतलब लिटरली. With my heart on my palms and tears in my eyes. In India, Hindus, Christians, Muslims, Sikhs, Parsis, and Sufis have lived harmoniously for many centuries. India is a melting pot. Whoever visits India gets into this pot. This has been the history of Indian civilization. In the subcontinent of India, people were peaceful, but the aliens who ruled India created hatreds among various religions. Aliens मतलब जो बाहर से आए थे, नॉट आउटर स्पेस से, जो अलग अलग रेडर्स आए थे, जो कोई भी मतलब बाहर के जो जो भी आए थे, राजा महाराजा वगैरह जिन्होंने इंडिया पे रूल किया, they created hatred among the various religious groups because of their policy of divide and rule. Sufis from all over the world go to India to pay homage to Indian Sufis. Even today, India is the home of Sufism. Sufism is a religion of love and is not followed by Mohammedans exclusively. Among the several Sufi sages I have met, one of the greatest was a woman who lived in the city of Agra, 120 miles away from Delhi. This city is famous because of Taj Mahal, a symbol of love and one of the wonders of the world. Once I traveled from the Himalayas to visit this old woman who lived completely naked in a small dargah, dwelling and worshipping place of the holy Muslim fakir. She was 93 years old of age and never slept at night. I used to call her BBG. This word is used for mother. She would call me my son, Bete. During my stay at Agra, I regularly visited the Sufi woman, sage, between 12 and 1 in the morning. मतलब रात में आ जाते basically. My visiting BBG at nights was misunderstood so much that people started thinking I had lost my equilibrium. Several high army officials and learned people also used to visit her. Colonel J.S. Khera was a great devotee. Although she was adored by Hindus and others equally, many people in the city did not understand this great Sufi mystic and her mysterious way of living. Her compassion towards her visitors was immense, but her attitude towards the mundane world was self explanatory. The people of the world have learned how to fill up earthen bowls with grains and coins, but no one knows how to fill the bowl of the heart. Oh God, so powerful. One night, BBG told me that it would be easy for me to meet God. I asked, what is the way? She said, to be one with the divine, one simply has to detach from this mundane world and be linked with the beloved. It is so simple. Offer your ruh means soul, to the Lord, and then there is nothing to be done or realized anymore. I said, BBG, but how? She started using a dialogue. I'm narrating it exactly as she related it to me. She said, as I went to see my beloved, he asked, who is that standing at the entrance of my shrine? I said, thy lover, Lord. The Lord said, what proof can you give? I said, here is my heart on my palms and tears in my eyes. And the Lord said, I accept thy offering, for I also love thee. Thou art mine. Go and live in the dargah. Since then, my son, I live here. I wait for him day and night, and I will wait for him till eternity. I remembered the words of the great man who said, this poisonous tree of life has but two fruits, contemplation on immortality and conversing with the sages. Satsanga and meditation, basically, right? देखिए, अगर आप ध्यान देंगे तो बुद्ध धर्म और संघ जो है वो तीन चीजें लॉर्ड बुद्ध ने भी बताई हैं. Buddha is basically your true nature, not the great Buddha, but your true nature. Dharma is the path of meditation, all the eightfold path that you follow, and Sangha is a company of sages that you roam around with. That's what I think. But if I'm wrong, you can please correct me also. Yeah. So if maybe she's talking about the God that she met inside of her meditation. Dharma is the practice of meditation. And third is Sangha, conversation with sages. Many times I would watch a very Sangha also means environment, आप किस तरह के लोगों के साथ घूमते हो. If you roam around with drug addicts, आप भी थोड़े टाइम में स्मोक करना शुरू कर दोगे and एक शॉट ले लोगे एक आध. Who knows actually? So it says कि Many times I would watch a very powerful light emanating from BBG's eyes. She impressed me deeply because of her superb divine ecstasy, her complete self-surrender, and her unfathomable love for God. She said the pearl of wisdom is already hidden within the shell of the ocean of the heart. Dive deep, and one day you will find it. One day she smilingly cast off her body. A light like that of a star was witnessed by 12 of us who were sitting around her. The light came out of her heart and sped towards the sky like lightning. She remains in my heart always. I remember BBG with great love and reverence. BBG, nice, cute. Karma is the maker. I used to hear a lot about the sage called Uriya Baba, who was very famous for his learning and spiritual wisdom. He lived in Vrindavan. My master sent me to live with this sage. Our devotee of this Baba, who knew me well, took me to Vrindavan. When I arrived there, I found hundreds of people waiting to have darshan of this great man. The Baba was informed by his devotee about my arrival. He very kindly instructed his devotee to take me to his room. This great man was very short in stature and about 65 years of age. He was considered to be one of the greatest learned scholars of North India. He had a large following all over the country. He was very kind and generous to me. In the evenings, we used to go on to the banks of Jamuna River for evening ablutions. Ablutions का मतलब क्या होता है? Ablutions का मतलब होता है act of washing oneself. अपने आप को धोना जमुना किनारे. One evening I asked him, is renouncing the world superior to living in the world? Which is the right path? During those days, I had been studying philosophy of karma. I knew that karma means cause and effect. I also knew that it is difficult to get freedom from these twin laws of karma. The Baba, in the course of conversation, told me it is not necessary for all human beings to renounce the world, for the path of renunciation is very difficult to tread. Actually, it is not necessary to renounce the objects of the world because a human being does not actually own or possess anything. Therefore, it is not necessary to renounce anything, but the sense of possessiveness should be renounced. Whether you live in the world or outside, it does not make much difference. Attachment to the objects of the world is the cause of misery. One who practices non-attachment faithfully and sincerely obtains freedom from the bondage of karma. In the path of action, duties are not renounced. See, in the path of action, duties are not renounced, but are performed skillfully and selflessly. See, कर्म करो, but fruits जो हैं वो आप उनको पोजेस नहीं करते, आप उनकी इच्छा छोड़ दो, राइट? तो फल की चिंता मत करो, राइट? कर्म अच्छे से करो. पाथ ऑफ एक्शन पे duties are not announced. The renunciate renounces the objects and goes far away from them, but he also performs his essential duties. Those who live in the world as householders also perform their essential duties. Those who become selfish by receiving and using the fruit of their action create many encumbrances for themselves. It becomes difficult for them to get freedom from this self-created bondage. If all attachments and sense of ownership are not renounced, the path of renunciation becomes miserable. If the householders do not practice non-attachment and continue to strengthen selfishness and possessiveness, it also creates misery for them. Wow. To attain the purpose of life, it is necessary to do one's duties, whether one lives in the world or outside it. The path of renunciation and the path of action, though two diverse ways, are equally helpful for attaining self-emancipation. One is the path of sacrifice, other is the path of conquest. एक बात थोड़ा सा और बात करते हैं इसके बारे में, थोड़ा सा इंपॉर्टेंट भी है. देखिए, पेपर वेट है, मैंने पहले ही बताया था, ठीक है। लाइक ये वाज एक्चुअली गोल्ड का बार, न समझो। पेपर वेट है, ठीक है। सपोज गोल्ड का अगर बार ही होता, तो गोल्ड के बार की उतनी वैल्यू होती जितना मेरा मन उसको देता। एट द एंड इट्स अ स्टोन। इनफैक्ट अगर ये गोल्ड का बार है और उसके सामने अगर ये एक छोटा सा एक पिंक रोज क्वार्ट्स है, ये दोनों अगर साथ में रखे हुए हैं, अगर एज ए हीलर अगर ये मेरे किसी काम का है तो इसकी वैल्यू ज्यादा हो जाएगी कंपेयर टू ये। इसकी वैल्यू मेरे लिए मोस्टली खाली फाइनेंशियल है, इससे ज्यादा कुछ नहीं है। बट दिस हैज कॉन्शियसनेस, इट कैन डू मच मोर एक्चुअली। सो वैल्यू जो होती है, जैसे कि नेपट्यून में अगर आप पानी लेके गए तो आपकी वैल्यू बहुत 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 ज्यादा हो जाएगी। वहां पे डायमंड्स होगी तो वहां बारिश होती है प्रैक्टिकली। उनको तो आपके पत्थर में कोई जरूरत नहीं एक्चुअली, राइट। सो आप कहाँ पे आपकी वैल्यू जो है, आप जिस चीज को वैल्यू असाइन करते हो, वो इस चीज से डिफाइन होती है कि आपके लिए उसकी वैल्यू क्या है। आपके लिए अभी अपनी हेल्थ की कोई बहुत ज्यादा वैल्यू नहीं, नॉर्मल वैल्यू होगी। अभी आपके लिए शायद पैसे की तरह वैल्यू होगी, या आपके लिए इन चीज़ों की तरह वैल्यू होगी। जो लोग एक्चुअली में बहुत अमीर हैं या बहुत रिच है, जो मतलब ढंग से खाना वाना खा नहीं सकते हैं, उनकी आंखों में हेल्थ की वैल्यू बहुत ज़्यादा एक्चुअली। उनको बस कोई वो रबड़ी मलाई खिला दे एक बार और कुछ ना हो, उनको जो है कोई अच्छी जलेबी वगैरह वगैरह खिला दे, उनको बहुत अच्छा लगता है एक्चुअली। वो नहीं खा सकते एक्चुअली, तो प्रॉब्लम ऐसी है। इनफैक्ट मेरी ही बिल्डिंग में एक लेडी रहती है, वो मुझसे एक दिन बात कर रही थी। उसके सिस्टम में 35 ईयर से इन्फ्लेमेशन इस तरह का चल रहा है कि उसको कुछ नहीं खा सकती। जहां भी कुछ खाती है उसकी बॉडी एकदम रिएक्ट कर जाती है। बताए वेरी रिच फैमिली एक्चुअली। शी वाज गगन, मैं कुछ भी देने को तैयार हूँ, मतलब नॉट टू मी बट टू एनीबडी, एनी वन इन द वर्ल्ड। अगर एक बार मतलब मैं इतना सारा भर मन भर के खाना खाना चाहती हूँ, मैंने कहा ओह वाह। सी द प्रायोरिटीज चेंज कंप्लीटली, वैल्यू चेंज हो जाती है उसके बाद, राइट। सो एनीवेज, हाँ, सो जैसे कि ना, देर आर टू पाथ्स, पाथ ऑफ प्रोनाउंसिएशन एंड पाथ ऑफ एक्शन। पाथ ऑफ प्रोनाउंसिएशन में यू बोथ, दोनों के दोनों रास्तों में आप एक्शन को प्रोनाउंसिएट नहीं करते हो, आप बस उसके फ्रूट्स जो होते हैं, जो आपकी इच्छाएं होती हैं, आप उनसे उन पे आप ध्यान नहीं देते। मतलब आप अच्छा काम करते हो, दरिया में डाल देते हो, दैट इज बिकम्स द अप्रोच। ऑब्जेक्ट्स की वैल्यू दोनों पाथ्स पे आपके लिए सिर्फ होती थी, आप को किस पर्पस से सर्व कर रही है, बस सिर्फ उतनी वैल्यू होती है उसकी। सो अगर आप अपनी लाइफ में भी एटीट्यूड को ले आएंगे कि एक आईफोन भी अगर है फॉर एग्जांपल, तो उसकी वैल्यू कितनी है, उतनी जितना कि पर्पस वो सर्व कर रहा है, बस उससे ज़्यादा उसकी वैल्यू नहीं है। एक बार एक हमारे मेरे एक मेंटर है, मतलब प्रणिक सर्कल में, और काफ़ी सीनियर भी हैं एक्चुअली। एक मतलब हम उनकी तरफ काफ़ी इज्जत से भी देखते हैं एक्चुअली, राइट। सो एक बार वो ट्रैवल कर रहे थे and अपने यंग डेज में, जब उन्होंने पहली पहली बार मतलब क्रॉनिकल पुल में आए थे, तो बड़ा मतलब बहुत बुक्स वगैरह मतलब पढ़ते थे, तो थोड़ा कभी हाँ मुझे आता है करके ना, ऐसा वाला वो वाला बात था। तो एक बार एक किसी ट्रेन में ट्रैवल कर रहे थे, 1990s की बात हो गई थी। और सामने एक मॉन्क बैठे हुए थे, और उस टाइम पे आई थिंक मोबाइल फोन्स बिल्कुल नहीं, उस टाइम पे नहीं आए थे, आई थिंक 2000s की बात होगी। और बिल्कुल मतलब मोबाइल फोन मार्केट में बिल्कुल नए नए आए थे उस टाइम पे। एंड मॉन्क के हाथ में फोन था, और बिल्कुल मतलब पूरी ट्रेन में से चार लोगों के हाथ में फोन होगा, और एक मॉन्क था उनमें से, समथिंग लाइक दैट। और इन्होंने पूछा कि आप तो मॉन्क हो, आप मतलब कैसे, यू आर सपोज टू टू रिनाउंस एवरीथिंग, आप मतलब फोन लेके घूम रहे हो, और समथिंग लाइक दैट। एंड मॉन्क ने कहा कि ये फोन मेरे पास है बिकॉज मेरे मेरे डिसाइपल्स ने मुझे दिया है कम्युनिकेशन करने के लिए। आई डोंट ओन दिस फोन, अगर चला जाएगा तो चला जाएगा, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं। आई एम नॉट अटैच टू टू दिस फोन। ये एक पर्पस सर्व कर रहा है, बस उस पर्पस तक की मेरी वैल्यू है इसको लेके, बाकी कोई वैल्यू नहीं है इसको। इट्स वेरी क्लियर एंड प्रिसाइज, नो। जहां तक जो चीज आपका पर्पस सर्व कर रही है, बस उतनी ही वैल्यूबल होती है वो, उससे ज्यादा वैल्यू नहीं होती इस चीज की। तो वैल्यू हम अपने मन में सेंड करते हैं। आज मैं आपको जिसका एग्जांपल दे रहा था कि मेरे मतलब इसी सेम सोसाइटी में एक एक व्यक्ति रहते हैं, बहुत बहुत रिच, बहुत प्रॉस्परस आदमी है। जिनका की माइंडसेट बहुत ही मॉडरेटेड है, बहुत परफेक्टली मॉडरेट माइंडसेट है उनका। सपोज मतलब आई थिंक इफ यू थिंक अबाउट हिम, अ पर्सन लाइक दिस जो है वो उतनी ही वैल्यू साइन करेगा किसी भी व्यक्ति को, प्रोजेक्ट को, या काम को, या ऑब्जेक्ट को, जितना की जितने की उसकी वैल्यू होगी उसकी आंखों में। उस प्लस जितना ज्यादा आपका अंडरस्टैंडिंग होता है, जितने पर्सपेक्टिव से, जितने फासेट से, आप उसकी वैल्यू उतनी ही एक्यूरेटली असाइन कर पाते हो। मतलब आपका व्यू पॉइंट उतना मॉडरेट होता होता जाता है विद टाइम। ये बहुत जरूरी चीज है, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर है एक्चुअली समझने के लिए। क्योंकि आपकी जितनी ज्यादा अंडरस्टैंडिंग होगी, सिर्फ नॉलेज की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, जितनी आपकी जितनी अंडरस्टैंडिंग होगी, आप उतना ही क्लियरली इसको मॉडरेट कर पाओगे अपना व्यू पॉइंट। और आपकी जो बेफजूली की जो वैल्यू गिरी है वो खत्म हो जाएगी। तो आपका जो अटैचमेंट है ऑब्जेक्ट से, सिचुएशन से, पीपल से, खत्म हो जाएगा, टोलरेट खत्म हो जाएगा एक्चुअली। तो यू विल basically go to a point of liberation, या attainment of liberation. Again, the Baba spoke. The law of karma is applicable to all equally. Our past samskaras are deeply rooted in the unconscious. These latent samskaras or impressions create various bubbles of thoughts and express themselves through our speech and actions. It is possible for the aspirant to get freedom from these samskaras. These memories have a stronghold in the bed of our samskaras, and those who can burn these samskaras in the fire of non attachment or knowledge are free from the bondage created by them. It is like a burnt rope which loses its binding power, though it still looks like a rope. When the latent impressions, though still in the unconscious, are burnt by a fire of knowledge and lose the power of germination, they never grow. They are like roasted coffee beans. You can use them to brew a cup of coffee, but they have no power to grow. Wow, good example, yeah. There are two varieties. There are two varieties of diverse qualities of samskaras. One quality of samskara is helpful in the path of spirituality, and the other is an obstacle. Non-attachment is like a fire that burns the binding power of samskaras, the benefits of which are derived by the renunciate. By renouncing the world are derived by the householder by the power of non-attachment. So जो चीजें एक renunciate जो होता है वो नॉन अटैचमेंट से कल्टिवेट करता है, या उसकी फायर से कल्टिवेट करता है, हाउस होल्डर भी जो है बिल्कुल वही चीजें कर सकता है नॉन अटैचमेंट से, सेम चीजें। The renunciate attains enlightenment outside the world and the householder in the world. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. यहाँ से अगली बार पढ़ेंगे। चलिए, so closing prayer. To the Supreme God, Great Divine Father, and the Great Divine Mother, thank you for your great blessings. Thank you so much to our great spiritual teacher, to all the great spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great, great ones. We very, very humbly thank you for your great blessings. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you. Everyone, have a great day. See you next time. Bye bye.